how the forgotten Audi 90 Sports Sedan tried to take down the mighty BMW 3 Series in the 80s. The 90 sedan was Audi's attempt at a fresh start, but people didn't forget the automaker's blunder easily. The Audi 90 Sports Sedan could possibly be described by some as boxy and unimaginative by today's standards. Keep in mind that this was a creation of the late 80s. Back then, the Audi 90's design was considered to be futuristic, aerodynamic, and yet, at the same time, understated. Given all that, one would think that Audi had a winner on its hands, especially once you factor in its equipment list and competent on-paper internals. But that wasn't exactly the case. While it is true that Audi had given the 90 a fighting chance, there were external factors that hindered its chance for success compared to its rivals, BMW and Mercedes-Benz. Audi was in deep trouble. In the mid-90s, the Audi 90 and 80 made its debut in 1987, but it wasn't just a run-of-the-mill update for the German carmaker. By this point, Audi was banking on the fact that buyers would focus on its new launch as something of a fresh start. It was something Audi desperately really needed. The reason for this is the Audi 5000. Back in 1984, Audi was on a roll. Sales had shot up considerably thanks to the success of the 5000, but things were about to take a complete 180 for the brand. Multiple reports of the Audi 5000 having sudden unintended acceleration problems broke out, which would eventually lead to a significant downward spiral for Audi, not just in terms of sales, but crucially in terms of reputation as well. This was very bad news for Audi, obviously. As the reports of these unintended acceleration instances piled up, fewer buyers went into Audi showrooms. From being on a high in 1984, when sales clocked almost 75,000, Audi could barely move around 12,000 units by 1991. Apparently, to try and limit the damage, Audi quickly added an automatic transmission interlock, making it impossible to shift into drive or reverse without a foot on the brake. But the damage, unfortunately, had already been done. The Audi 90 took aim at the 3 Series and C-Class. In need of a fresh start, though, Audi plowed through and debuted the 90 sedan in 1987. This, of course, was aimed squarely at taking on the BMW 3 E30 series and Mercedes-Benz C-Class of the time. It featured flush-fitting door handles, interesting design elements like the headlights and grille transitioning into the hood, and thin pillars that all pointed toward a new design direction as compared to its predecessor. As for what powered it, there was a 2.0-liter 4-cylinder engine for the 80 model, which produced 108 horsepower and 121 lb-ft of torque. However, a 2.3-liter 5-cylinder engine was what you got if you spec'd the 90 Quattro model with a 5-speed manual. This allowed it to produce 130 horsepower and 140 lb-ft of torque. You could also spec the 90 with a front-wheel drive option, and a 3-speed automatic transmission would also become available, aside from the 5-speed manual. MotorWeek had the following to say about the interior. Given its high cost, it's good that the 80/90th's interior is also as fresh as its exterior. A flowing look replaces the boxy theme of the previous car. And in the bells and whistles department, there's Audi's I'm OK system check and warning readout. Despite a minimum of adjustments, the seats provide plenty of support, and the leather used here isn't the kind that lets you slide off in turns. The steering wheel is fixed but doesn't block the gauges. Audi 90 interior features: leather upholstery, power windows, power door lock, power steering, air conditioning, wood applique on the dash and center console, red backlight gauge cluster, heated front seats, optional. This goes to show that Audi did put a fair amount of effort into making the 90 sedan stand out from its problematic predecessor. That said, everything about the 90 wasn't as good as it seemed. The Audi 90 was mostly good, but the damage had already been done. While the Audi 90 did have a lot of good points, there were a few drawbacks that stopped it from being potentially as good as Audi thought it. For instance, while the back seat was a step up in terms of space over its predecessor, the trunk lost a bit of space. As per MotorWeek, it was deep enough, short, and the floor is anything but flat. On top of that, they state that the manual shifter is a bit notchy, and coupled with the near 3000 lb weight, acceleration is just about adequate for what is actually meant to be a sports sedan. As per their test, the 90 covered the quarter-mile run in 17.4 seconds, while 0 to 60 miles per hour took 10.3 seconds. Even in the handling department, they describe it as adequate, with them going on to admit that the car doesn't hang on with the tenacity of, say, a 3 Series. The Audi 90 wasn't cheap either. At the time, it started at $24,300, which was about $2,000 more than the Audi 5000, as per MotorWeek. The test car they were reviewing, however, stretched up to a little more than $26,000. According to usedcaraggregatorclassic.com, an Audi 90 has an average value of $7,872. All that said, though, the damage had already been done for Audi, and regardless of how competent the 90 sedan could be, very little time had passed for people's perception of the brand to change.